Okay, so we are going to go over our 1 to 4 family residential contract. Again, this is for Full Circle Texas agents. If you are not one of our agents, I would recommend speaking to your broker about the contract. So 1 to 4 family residential contract, it is a long contract. This is a contract that you are going to use the majority of the time when you are in real estate and our kind of area of practice that we do. So on the first line, you are going to put the seller's name. I'm going to say Bob Jenkins for today. On a different video, I will show exactly how you can find this information if you have not been taught that already. Under the buyer's name, we're going to put Sally for the buyer. Now the property, the lot number, the block, and the legal description. I will show you again how to use this later, but as for this, we're just going to put in blank information. Choose one of those. The legal description is the entire description under the legal description area on the tax profile report. Again, I'll show you that in a different video, but you do have to put the exact same thing that it says on the legal description. You cannot miss anything. You can't take anything off or abbreviate it. It has to be exactly what it shows on the legal description, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. Let's put Kingwood for the city, county. Let's put Harris. And we'll put the address, and we will make one up for now. And you have to put the city, the state, and the zip code. Most of the time it'll auto-populate if it's actually in the database. If not, you need to make sure that you are putting the actual street name, the city, and the state, and the zip code. Exclusions. So basically, exclusions are going to be anything that were already set with the seller's agent that have put in the agent remarks. Let's say they have a chandelier that the seller is wanting to keep. You would put this under exclusions. Let's say that she's wanting to keep a rosebush in the front yard. This is where you would put under exclusions. So just for example purposes, we're going to say that she wanted to keep the chandelier. We're going to be very descriptive with what it is. So chandelier in the dining room attached to the kitchen. So you want to be very descriptive as to where this item is and what it is, what it looks like, everything that you can under exclusion so there's no confusion going forward. Sales price. So this is a fun one. If we are doing third-party financing, we'll do that one first and then I'll show you a cash. So third-party financing, let's say this house is $300,000 and that's what we're wanting to offer is $300,000. Our clients are putting 10% down. So $300,000 with 10% down would be $30,000 for their down payment. So you would put their down payment amount on the first line. The second line, you're going to subtract that $30,000 from their offer price, which again, we're offering $300,000. So the total that will go on the second line is the amount that you are actually getting financed for, which would be $270,000. One too many zeros. So it auto-populates on the bottom that says $300,000. That's how much you're offering on the home. Again, first line is the amount that they're putting for the down payment. Second line is the amount that they're doing for financing. And the third line auto-populates by itself. If this were to be cash, we would take off the third-party financing. We would put nothing here. And at the top line is where we would put $300,000. And it would auto-populate on the bottom saying $300,000. Obviously, it's a cash sale. It's not third-party financing, so you would not click third-party financing. So we're going to keep it as third-party financing for now. Just so we can attach a third-party financing addendum to it. Residential leases. This is going to be if you're selling a home that is already under lease, you would obviously have to say that it is under lease, and it's obviously going to withhold that lease. So if you're doing anything like you're selling a home that's been leased out, right now it's May, and let's say it's leased out till the beginning of July, you would have to put box 4A that it was actually a residential lease. You don't come across those very often, so we are actually going to skip that part. Number 5, earnest money and option fee. On this first line, we have to say who the escrow agent is. I'm going to use Hometown Title as an example. So I would put the escrow officer, who I usually use as Mia Hayslett. We're going to put their address. Again, most of the time it auto-populates, but you want to make sure that everything does pop up, the city, the state, everything on the second line. You're going to put the amount of money. The earnest money is usually 1% of the sales price. Yes, in this market, the buyers have been going to 2% as earnest money, kind of just shows that you're a little bit more serious about the contract, but the normal amount is usually 1%. But again, this is an amount that can actually be negotiated. It is not set at just 1%. So that is something that your clients can negotiate on. So 1% goes on the first line as the earnest money. The second line is the option fee. What is normal? This market is not normal right now, but what is normal is $150 for 5 days, or $150 for 7 days, or $300 for 7 days. This part is also negotiable, so it's really what your clients are wanting to give, but the normal basis is about $150 to $300, and it ranges from anywhere from 3 to 7 days. 7 days is usually the cap. You will see some that go as far as 10, but I only allow 10 if there is a holiday, which meaning that you have to extend. So right here, let's say our clients are going to give $200 for a 7-day option fee. This second line on 1A is just if they are giving additional earnest money. You don't see that very often. On box 5B, the termination option, I'm going to put 5 days. So $200 for 5 days, meaning that our clients can terminate this contract anytime within those 5 days. Remember that the termination option period, if we had executed our file today, meaning that the buyers and the sellers both have signed, that today is day 0, meaning tomorrow on Friday would be day 1. And you have 5 days from then, weekends are included, and it will terminate on the 5th day at 5 p.m. It's very, very important to remember that. On 6A, we're going to say the title policy, seller shall furnish to the buyer at, it is usually the seller's expense. I've seen a couple buyers paying it now to save the seller a couple $1,000s at closing. It is something that you can use, but the majority of the time the seller is the one that is paying it. Here you'll put the title policy is issued by, and this is the closer that you had chosen and where they work. So Hometown Title would be the one for this. On here, this is basically talking about reservations, exemptions, and number 8, 1 and 2 says the standard printed exception as to discrepancies, conflicts, shortages in the area or boundary lines, encroachment, protrusions, or overlapping improvements. You can choose will not be amended or deleted from the title policy, or it will read shortages in the area in the expense of buyer or seller. I usually mark 8.1, but if you don't want to do that, you need to explain to your clients exactly what this means. And if you need help on that, I can further explain later. So we are going to go down to C. If you have been issued a survey, you can write on box 1 and say within 5, 7, 3. It's really, again, up to your discretion. Normal is around 3 to 7 days, basically saying that the seller is going to furnish the survey to you, and they are also going to send you the T47. It says on here, if the seller fails to furnish the existing survey or the affidavit within the time prescribed, buyer shall obtain a new survey at the seller's expense no later than 3 days prior to closing. If the existing survey or affidavit is not acceptable to the title policy, the buyer's lender, the buyer shall obtain a new survey at, usually when it is the buyer, it's usually the buyer's expense. If the seller has already furnished the survey, again, this is negotiable, but I usually put the buyer's expense for this. If they do not have a survey, you can mark box 2 or 3 when it says within a certain amount of days, the buyer shall obtain a new survey at buyer's expense. Buyer is deemed to receive the survey on the date the actual receipt of the date was received in the paragraph, whichever is earlier. Box 3 states within blank days after the effective date of the contract, seller at seller's expense shall furnish a new survey to the buyer. Usually box C1 is the one that you're going to mark. And usually if an agent, the seller's agent, is wanting you to click a different box, there's a reason behind it, and they usually explain that to you. Objections you will not see very much in here, but you can always explain this to your client. I always assume that your client doesn't know that much about each contract, and I like to actually read this to them so they can understand what exactly is going on. Under E2, it basically states that the property is or is not in an HOA. For this purpose, we're going to say that the property is in an HOA, with most of them in the Houston area are. Then we're going to go down to 7. This one's really important. As the listing agent, I try to tell my agents all of the time that it is very important to have the seller's disclosure on HAR. The reason why: if you do not give the buying agent the seller's disclosure, they are able to terminate the contract at any time within 7 days after they have received that seller's disclosure. So let's say you are working with the sellers and you haven't done a seller's disclosure yet, but you get an offer for the home and you want to take it. So this basically states that, let's say the buyer's agent said that the buyer has not received the notice and they need it within 3 days of the effective date of the contract. If your clients have not given them the seller's disclosure within those 3 days, let's say you gave it to them on the 5th day. What that means is on that 5th day, those buyers now have 7 days that they can terminate the contract and still get their earnest money back because you delayed them getting the seller's disclosure. So it is very, very, very important that always, as a selling agent, you always have the seller's disclosure going to them so they can only mark 7B1, not B2. The only time that you will write B3 is if it's an investor home, they haven't lived in it. There's certain situations under the Texas Property Code that they do not have to furnish that. When we go down to D1, this is the kind of fun, tricky part that a lot of agents don't really pay attention to. Sorry, still not feeling well, so I can't talk. So D1, where it says property buyer accepts the property as is, this is basically saying, yes, the buyer is accepting the property as is, but this pertains after option period. It's not that your buyer is accepting the property as is, meaning that they can't have any repairs done. This is just basically stating that the buyer accepts the property as is after that option period is over. Let's say your clients have seen some things in the property that they already know that they want done. For instance, I had a client that knew that they wanted a tree taken down that was too close to the house and they wanted it removed. So I chose D2 and I put that the buyer wanted the tree removed off of the property in order for them to move forward on the home. So you can actually put that here for anything that you know that your buyers are already wanting to be done before moving further into the contract. Example, the tree needs to be removed and the roots need to be ground down before we would even accept anything on this contract. A lot of agents don't look for that, and this particular agent did not. So when we got to the end, she told me that there was never any talk about a tree being removed off the property. There was, it was on 2D. She just didn't pay attention. So they had to remove the tree. Here under H, so this is 7H, this is residential service contracts, which is the home warranty. Basically giving your buyer a year to have a residential service contract where if something breaks, they could pay a monetary fee and they could get that, whatever it is, fixed or replaced. The normal amount for this on one of the higher ends of any of the service contracts are about $550. If it has a pool, I would go up to about $675. But if it does not have a pool, $550 should cover any one of the higher packages with any of the service contracts that companies that you're actually going to use. So $550 is a good amount. Here under brokers and sales agent, basically this is if you're working with a parent, a brother or sister, anything like that that you're needing to disclose, you need to put that here. Remember, it's just if you're working with a spouse, a parent, a child, or a business entity. It's not your cousin or anything like that. So those would put here, and you would basically say buyer's agent is related to the buyer. Let's say they're their parent. Buyer's agent is representing her parents. So that's basically what you would put on this end here, and then you move forward. So closing. This is basically saying that you are going to close on or before this date. And so we would choose, normally it's about 30 days, and so we would choose the date there. Then we would go forward. Under 10A, you're going to say that your buyers are taking possession upon closing and funding, or if they are doing a temporary lease, you would click this second box. Special provisions, I know you learned in school not to ever really write anything there. I would recommend not writing anything there. Here where we go down to 12B, sorry, this is where your buyers can ask for any seller contributions. It's not very common in our market now, but this is where you would put it. So let's say your buyers are needing $5,000 in closing. You would put that amount here. So the sales price would be $300,000, but your buyer's asking for $5,000. So the seller's net would be $295,000 is the way that the sellers would look for it. We're going to go all the way down. Here, under 21, this is probably a really big pet peeve of mine. If you're working with the buyers, please make sure to put their email address. Title needs this. htx.com. So title needs this to be able to contact them and send them any buyer forms that they need. Just make sure that you don't have to put their name or phone number, but just make sure you at least put one email of theirs. Under number 22, this is very important. If you mark any of these boxes, the lender is going to ask you for these addendums because they will need them. Third-party financing, we need that because they are getting a loan. They are in a mandatory HOA, so we need to mark that as well. If there's a sale of another property, we need to mark that. If there is a coastal addendum for coastal area properties, we're going to mark that. Addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal. That is really big right now. We are going to mark that. If there's a temporary lease, if the home was built before 1978 and it needs a lead disclosure, you would mark that. Any fixture leases, residential leases, and then other, we're going to do non-realty addendum. We use that a lot for refrigerators, washers, dryers, stuff like that, so we're going to use that as well. Number 23, you'll leave blank unless your client does have an attorney. You would put their name, their address, phone number, and email. We get down to the last section, and the last person to have the contract needs to fill in the executed date. Lenders are getting very picky on this, so make sure that whoever has the contract last, they have last signature. They do have to put a date here. This part's fun. So we're going to say we are the buyer's agent. So our firm is Full Circle, Texas. Our license number is 900-9647. Say associate's name. We're going to say Deb Arnold again. Make up her license number. Associate's email address. You need to make sure that you are filling out every single one of these pieces. You cannot leave any of these out on your contract. When I go to check them later, I will have to send them back to you. Licensed supervisor. Make sure that you are putting me or any of the managers that are helping you, and you have to put our address. And our phone number. Now, the easiest way to find this information. Let's say we are working with, let me make up we'll say Robin Bailey. So we are going to open up another page, and we are going to TREC.texas.gov. This is how you find this information. Do not ever send a contract to somebody with it blank on their side. For one, it's kind of rude, but for two, it just kind of shows that you're lazy and you're not wanting to do the work. Come on. Texas. There we go. So if you go to TREC.texas.gov, you can come down here where the license holder search. We're going to put in Robin Bailey, and we're going to click search. Every bit of their information, from their license number, who they are, what they do, their office, their sponsoring broker, is all right here. And you need to put all of this information down. So we're going to say, let's see, her license number is 488910. Robin Bailey. Her phone number is 281-358-8888. We're going to put down her email address. And then we are going to put the sponsoring broker. Their license number. Their address. I always write this down on a sheet of paper. It's actually what I'm doing right now. So then when I go to the next page, I will be able to write everything down. If the broker's name is coming up as Walgood LLC, you can click on that and you actually know that they're doing business as Remax Associates Northeast. So it's really important that you put that there. So we're going to go back to zip forms. Now that we know it's Remax Associates Northeast, we're going to type that. We know that the brokerage number is 900-5459. We know the listing associate's name. We know that her license number is 488910. We know that her email is robinbailey29@yahoo.com. We know that her phone number is 281-358-8888. Licensed supervisor, it didn't say. Broker's address. Oak Street, Kingwood. And we know his phone number. If you don't know it, you can always put her number again. So you basically got all the information that you needed on the other side, and you've also clicked that the sellers are only the seller's agent, and you put all the information there. Last important thing, down here under the fee commission, make sure that you are looking on the MLS to see exactly what it is. Make sure that when you do look on the MLS under the agent report, you take a screenshot. It has been happening where agents have been changing the commission after it's gone under contract. Make sure that you've taken a screenshot before that, so if they try to reduce it, you could fight it and say they changed it after you guys went into an executed contract. Make sure to put that amount there in the percentage, and that is it. So once you get done with this 1-4 contract, you will go on to all of the amendments, which we will go to next.